Yo, my name is Benjamin, and in this video, I'll cover a different way of setting up your mobile navigations. Specifically, we'll cover menus that fade into view on tap, instead of menus that animate their height. If you haven't yet, I recommend watching the previous video covering mobile navigation menus first, as we'll be picking up where we left off in that video. So in this demo project, we currently have an identical setup. We have this mobile navigation that animates to the full viewport height, and it also collapses back to 64 pixels. The links within it are clipped, and they fade in and out of view as well. So how do we go from this animation into one where we can simply fade the backdrop and the links in and out of view, and even add a staggered effect? In this release, we're adding new features that unlock those navigation patterns as well. I'll first resize the phone variant to a matching height of 800 pixels, just so we can dissect the changes we're about to make. And I'll also bring back this links stack by setting opacity to 1. We don't want any clipping or height animations. So let's set overflow to visible on the phone variant. Next, we'll set transition to instant on both the phone and the phone open variant. So at this point, we shouldn't have any more clipping or height animations in place. This means we also no longer need to have a fill on these two variants. Instead, we'll want to have a separate backdrop layer that always occupies the entirety of the viewport, and that can fade in and out of view on tap. So I'll simply draw this frame, set it to position absolute, dock it to the left top and right sides, and then I'll set height to viewport. This is the first new feature of this release. We recently added the ability to define viewport units for the min and max sizing options. And starting today, you can also define viewport units for the height property of any layer within a component, which is very useful for backdrops like these. I'll grab the backdrop within the phone open variant as well and set visible to yes. And a quick aside, this is not overlapping my links because the links already have a z-index value of 2, and the backdrop gets a z-index of 1 by default. So we're lucky here, it works out of the box. If your backdrop happens to overlap your links, make sure that your links have a higher z-index value. So we have the backdrop layer in place. However, we know that our variants here have transition set to instant. But we want to animate these two layers while keeping the variant switching instant. The second new feature we're introducing in this release is the ability to add transition properties to any layer within a component. So with both of these backdrops selected, I'll head over to the Styles menu, and I'll add a transition property, and I can give these some nice spring values. Next, we'll do the same thing for the links parent. I'll select both, and let's give these the same transition values, which is stiffness set to 400 and damping set to 50. Next, let's set opacity back to 0 on the links layer and also for the backdrop. Otherwise, nothing would be animating in and out. Now, because both of these layers here are overflowing, we have to make sure that the pointer events are set to none. Otherwise, they could be blocking interactions behind them. Finally, we'll select the phone variant, and we can resize its height back to the original 64 pixels. So let's go back to the homepage and give our phone breakpoint a preview. As you can see, we now have a nice fade in and fade out transition of our menu. Let me reset the background color here. So at this point, we've essentially reached our goal. The menu now fades in and occupies the entirety of the viewport instead of animating the height and clipping its layers. But there's more we can do, and there is one more new feature I would like to highlight. If we hover over these links here, you can see that nothing really happens. So let's change that and add a nice hover state. The third new feature we're adding in this release is transition support for link styles. I'll edit the link style right here. And as you can see, we now get a nice transition control. I'll first update the hover color, and then we can add a nice subtle transition as well. And if we now go back and give this a preview, we now get a nice transition on hover, and this also works in the phone variant. It works for any layer that has this link style applied. So that is the third feature that we've designed to help improve your navigations. Finally, there are more fun things we could do with the new transition property. For example, we could use it to add a staggered animation to our links in this menu. So first, let's select the link stack in the phone variant and add an extra 20 pixel of left side padding. Then in the phone open variant, I'll select all of these child layers, and I'll add the transition property to these as well. Next, we can start adding a unique delay value to each of these transitions. So I'll add a 0.05 delay incrementally to each layer here, starting from 0.1 seconds and ending at 0.5 seconds. I'll go ahead and speed up this part just a little bit, and there we go. All links now have a unique delay value. So let's go into the preview and see what we have so far. So we can see that the delay is working, but the links aren't fading in just yet. So let's go back into our component, select all of these layers within the phone variant, and set opacity to 0. If we now go back and give this a preview, we can see that we have successfully designed a stagger in animation. So let's go back and start designing a stagger out animation as well. First, I'll select the links layer in the phone variant, and we can remove the transition and set opacity to 1 here. As we're essentially animating all the child layers, we no longer need to animate this parent stack as well. And we can also remove it from the links layer within the phone open variant. Alright, so now it's just these layers themselves plus the backdrop that are animating here. So we can do the same thing as before, select all of these, add a transition, set it to spring, and then start adding unique delay values, except here we'll start from the bottom and we'll work our way upwards. So again, we'll start at 0.1, then 0.15, then 0.2, then 0.25, and so on and so forth, all the way up to 0.5. And because this fade out or stagger out animation will now be delayed, we'll also want to select the backdrop in the phone variant and give this a delay of about 0.5 as well. This makes sure that the backdrop only fades out once the links are done animating as well. So let's go back home and give this another preview. And now, whenever we close the menu, we get this nice stagger out animation as well. And we can do a few more things, like we could animate this line as well by setting the width to 1 pixel within the phone variant and animating it to fill the available space. We can also play with the distribute property, like animating it from the center here. And if we now go back and give this another preview, this gives us a nice subtle line animation as well. And that's pretty much it for this video. Viewport unit support for the height property in components, the ability to customize the transition of any layer within a component, and the ability to add transitions to a link style all come together to unlock even more navigation patterns in Framer. Thank you so much for watching this video, and stay tuned for more navigation updates coming soon.